Hello and welcome to Coffee Lovers TV. I'm your host, Joseph Robertson. Those of you who've been watching my weekly Cup of Joe will notice that this week I did a new introduction for the show. I'm totally going to do that for this show. It's just going to take me a little while because I want to get together a number of clips. I think I'm going to do like a kind of a cut segment series thing for the introduction. I also want to find some nice music for that. So that'll be coming, but it'll be a little bit longer. And I also want to thank all of you for all of your feedback. I really appreciate it. It really keeps me going. It's good to chat with you all about coffee and what I'm doing with the show. Really excited today because I have a Kalita Wave. Oh, one more thing before I dive into this. So I'm trying to work out the autofocus on my camera. And what I usually do is I usually manually focus, but since I'm working on a number of walk-around type things, that has become really challenging. So I'm trying to work out the autofocus, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be in focus in this shot, and that it doesn't go off on something on the background or what have you. So if I'm out of focus, I really apologize. I'm still going to publish the episode, even if I'm out of focus, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so as I said, Kalita Wave. I've been talking about this one for a bit, and I finally just decided to get one. Here's the thing. So I've been doing all of my brewing on a Chemex for quite a while. There are significant differences in the result that you get on a Wave and a Chemex, largely owing to a couple of things. The Kalita Wave has this flat bottom, and I should have brought a filter over here, but the filter, I'll be doing a video on the Wave, so you'll be able to see this, is waved. They're like waved ridges, which increases the kind of surface area. Long story short, you get two things happen with the Kalita Wave. You get more extraction theoretically from the coffee, and the filter is thinner, so you're getting a bit more through it. Now, practically, like in the cup, what I get is a coffee that is just has, I want to say it has more flavor. It certainly does. Like the Chemex kind of has a crisper, in some ways cleaner taste, owing to the thicker filter, I believe. I mean, maybe as well the way that the water flows through the coffee, but I think it's probably mostly the filter. And I get a lot more flavors coming in the cup in the Kalita Wave. So what I'll probably do going forward is I'll try the coffees on both and see which one I like them best. But I think that brewing on something like the Wave is going to give me more things to talk about in terms of the taste. You might have noticed last week there were some moments where I'm tasting and it was hard to discern. I think that maybe some of the flavors ended up a little too subtle. I also may have had some brewing issues as well, but very happy with the Wave thus far, and that's what I'm going to be brewing with. So on the show today, I have a coffee from Anchorhead Coffee Roasters. Now, Anchorhead, these guys are really cool. I actually met them a couple years ago through Jesse at Conduit Coffee. When Anchorhead was starting out, they went and got some advice and some help from Jesse on getting started. They started off with cold brew. So if you're a longtime reader of the magazine, you may remember that I had a story with these guys from Anchorhead, Mike and Jake. And when I met them and I went and did the interview, they were still roasting and brewing cold brew out of their garage. They had a tiny little roaster. It probably fit on half of this table, and I think you could do a pound at a time or something like that. It was really, it was actually a really cool roaster. I mean, it looked like a tiny version of a large drum roaster. I kind of want one. Anyways, that's beside the point. So these guys started off with cold brew, and it was bottled cold brew, and they were doing this well before the cold brew craze. So I think there might have been one other, like I think Stumptown was just starting to bottle their cold brew at the same time that they were starting their business. So they hit it off at the right time. And then during the winter, which is very much the down season for cold brew, they had to figure out how to build the business to keep going, to be sustainable year round, and they just naturally moved into roasting coffee. I'm happy to say that they're doing a fantastic job now. I have today, see if that focuses. I'll bring it back here. I have today a Colombia from the Planadas, Tolima region. And the grower, his name is Leuven de Villa. Now, I looked up, I think they may be the only ones who have this coffee from this grower. I couldn't find it anywhere else, so it's quite possible. I might double check with them. And it's a fully washed coffee, so I've had it a few times on the Chemex, and I've had it on the Wave, and it is absolutely fantastic. I would not. And it might be the effect of moving to the Wave, but I would not guess that it was fully washed coffee. It's certainly, so the washed coffees, they will typically, in my experience, have more delicate flavors, but a lot more flavors, versus on the other end of the spectrum, a natural, which has very bright and distinct flavors, but less of them. The prime example, if you've had the experience, is like an Ethiopia Yirgacheffe that just screams wild blueberries as you're drinking it. And that's like the thing that's in your face, versus a washed, which could have 5, 6, 8, or, all these different flavors that you could interpret. So I think that, they both have their merits. Doing a lot of washed coffees right now. You'll see a change when I start getting into the naturals, because there'll be these big bombs of flavor that are going to be fun to show off. This one I'm very excited to get into, and so I'll show this once again. They actually have a little map to kind of give you an idea of where the coffee is in Colombia. Very cool. Okay, let's go brew the coffee, and then we'll come back. I realized I forgot to do the aroma, so I figured, why not just do a little bit of that? Oh, this is cooling off. I can smell this, and then I can smell that. All right, so Colombian coffees, I guess classically, typically. So here's the thing. This is a whole nother conversation. I'm just going to quickly touch on this. Coffees in the past have had a tendency, like certain regions' coffees have had a tendency to be like a certain way. So we can say, in general, Colombian coffees tend to be like chocolatey and nutty and that sort of thing. Now, things have been changing rapidly over the past few years in terms of productions on the farm, and especially in like Central America, people have been bringing in really sophisticated production techniques to create coffees that are not at all like what you would expect, quote unquote, from the region. So for a Colombian coffee, that means that the whole door of like fruity light coffees is really opened up. So you can almost, like, I think you can almost expect anything from any region now. People are really starting to pull a lot of fascinating flavors out of different production techniques. But I will say that there still are baseline trends, perhaps, because a lot of these coffees, like the baseline trends, are based off of like the variety of the coffee. Like, so this is a Caturra. This is a Caturra from Colombia. When I pick up a bag of Colombia, my initial thought might be, without looking at the flavors on the bag, my initial thought might be, okay, it might be something chocolatey and nutty. Let's have a look. And I think, so I'm going to give you my impressions, and then I'm also going to comment on the flavor notes that they have suggested as well. I've gone back and forth on whether I should ignore those, go off those completely, include them, what have you. I think that, first off, I'd like to give you my impression since I'm the one talking. But also, I find that my opinion of like flavor notes on a bag of coffee is that that's part of the experience, because what starts to happen is when people suggest that something smells like a particular thing, then you're going to really start seeing that. And I think that plays into a lot of the experience that you have with coffee as well. So I think that's important to include. Okay, let me get to the smelling. Less talking, more smelling. Now, every time I smell this, what pops in my head is cereal, and it's got a lot of, well, that and like milk chocolate. So it's got a lot of milk chocolate. Like I can smell a lot of milk chocolate, but it also has this clearly distinctive fruit sort of side to it. And what I think is like Count Chocula and Count Chocula and Frankenberry, if memory serves. I had to go look it up really quick. It's been a long time since I've had cereals, but you know how when you have a sugary cereal and you've gone through it, and then you have the milk, and the milk has this nice, smooth, sweet, and it tastes of the cereal. That happens to me. That happens a lot when I'm smelling coffees and tasting them sometimes too. Yeah. So to go off their flavors, they say Cracker Jacks on this. I'm immediately like, okay, yeah, that smells like I stuck my face in a bag of Cracker Jacks. Sure, that makes a lot of sense. They also have Starfruit on here, which I can't conjure up right now. And I can kind of conjure up hibiscus a bit. I've enjoyed that quite a bit in sort of teas. And then marshmallow. These are, I think, more talking about the actual flavors in the cup, which we're going to discuss in a moment. But I definitely could also see Cracker Jacks in there. So let me set this aside. Oh, wow. Rich sweetness and a lot of fruit. Okay, now the heat is getting in the way, but I got a lot of fruit there for a moment, like almost like a cider, like a mulled cider. So maybe there's some cinnamon and nutmeg coming through there even. Okay, let's get into a glass. All right. That is rich. And this is the delicate nature of the wash that I'm sorting through, because I'm getting all sorts of flavors. I'm getting an interesting sort of roastiness with caramel as well. And that could be like the Cracker Jacks sort of thing, like popcorn and caramel. That impression of cereal doesn't come in, but sort of somewhere between milk and dark chocolate, or like a bit of milk chocolate. Like I took a bite of a piece of really dark chocolate and a piece of milk chocolate at the same time. But also there's this incredible side of fruit to this as well. Like it's really juicy. And so we use the term juicy with coffee a lot. What I've come to understand that as, for me, is that when a coffee is juicy to me, it's just the sort of experience that I have biting into like a fresh peach or something like that. That explosion of juice and fruitness, and the fruit, the delicate fruit sweetness that just kind of goes everywhere. It's because it has a light edge to it, because this coffee is not darkly roasted. This is a fairly lightly roasted coffee. Yeah, this is. I don't know if that'll come out at all, but this is a fairly lightly roasted coffee, and so we're getting a lot of what we're getting from this is from the coffee fruit. Flavors that are imparted from the coffee fruit and how that was processed to get at the pit that was roasted. But there's this underlying chocolatiness to it that's really nice. After reading the description, I was kind of wondering, because I'm not sure I see marshmallow. Maybe that's in the sweetness. Maybe the sweetness that I'm seeing as milk chocolate is more like marshmallow. Maybe that's what that is. But I think for me in this cup, it's actually really dominated by that juiciness. And that's where, to me, the hibiscus comes in, or I might even identify it as tamarind. It's got a really nice, bright edge to it. Quite pleasant. I've been enjoying this coffee a lot this week. If you're watching this right now and you're like, what coffee should I get next? Just get this one. Just get this. I think this is one of those really excellent lighter roasted coffees that can bring you in if you're used to something medium or darker. And I say that because of the deeper chocolatiness to the coffee. Kind of gives you a step into it. It's not just a bunch of fruit like black tea. No. This has a nice richness, like coffee richness that you would expect from a coffee. Oh, we forgot to do the color. Gosh, I hope the exposure is all right. Let me do this. I'm doing a combination of light and natural light. Anyways, it's there's certainly a red tinge to it, much darker, and that could certainly, the darkness of this compared to like previous ones could certainly be owing to that I did the Kalita, which has a thinner filter, and so a bit more is coming through. We're going to have to do some comparisons with Kalitas in the future. I'm going to pause for a minute and let this cool off a little bit, and then come back with just some final thoughts. So very interesting, as it's cooling, I'm starting to get some like spice aromas coming off of this. Faint, but they hit my nose interestingly. Letting the coffee cool can help. As the coffee cools, like the balance of flavor is going to shift. So sometimes when the coffee cools, other flavors will come out while others will disappear. As it's cooling, it's really settling on this nice caramel and a little bit of fruit left. It's easy. So again, going back to how the description is on the bag, it'd be easy for me to sit here and say it's star fruit. It's got it definitely has a melon fruitiness to it. I'll go with that. So as it cools, we get the caramel. The chocolate's kind of really kind of mellowed out a bit. I get like the bright edge of a really dark chocolate. If you've had a really like a 70 or 80% dark chocolate, it has that really sort of sharp edge to it. Not in a bad way though, just in like a bright way, and I get that on here. But also not dissimilar from munching on a handful of Cracker Jacks, if I must say so. I definitely like that description. But you also have to keep in mind the fruit element that's in here. So as I was saying before, I think this is a fantastic coffee for anyone. If you are coming directly from dark coffees, you may want to take a step in between just because the fruit is probably going to throw you off. But if you're on something more medium, I think this is really good. If you're looking for coffee right now, I'll link this up in the notes below. And just on a note on that, for most of the coffees that I share on here, I'm not getting anything for it, and that's totally fine. If I do, and I will be having some partnership with Conduit, so that's not completely in play yet. But if I do, I'll make a note of it in some way on the show or in the notes below. This is just, I like these guys, and this coffee's great. If you're looking for something interesting, check it out. Thank you for watching. Please, please, please subscribe. I love it when you subscribe. You get all my updates, and I do other stuff too, the Cup of Joe and video tips. And I'm going to start doing, starting working on some other projects as well. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming on the show. You don't want to miss it. And share with your friends and comment below. I love comments. I love talking to people about coffee. Looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you for watching. Have a great week.